Hello everyone, welcome to the video. I'm going to be discussing Calvinism today, and specifically I'm going to be discussing the 5 points of Calvin. Of course, Calvinism named after this guy here, John Calvin, and here we have the Holy Apostolic Ceiling Fan as well, which I'm told is a very important part of Calvinist theology by people online. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about the first of the 5 points, but I'll go through all of them as I plan to do some follow-up videos on this topic. And they make up this acronym, TULIP, here. So we've got total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and the perseverance of saints. So for the purposes of today, as I said, we're going to be going over total depravity, which can be generally summarized here as people cannot choose God by themselves and are in states of perpetual sin, and that is all due to the fall, as in what happened in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. So I'm going to be offering a Catholic perspective on this doctrine of Calvinism, and there are certain parts that are similar with Catholic theology. So I bring up this example here. So here we have City of God, Book 13, Chapter 3. This is the title of Chapter 3. Whether death, which by the sin of our first parents has passed upon all men, is the punishment of sin even to the good. So this chapter title is one of the many proofs, not just many proofs in the City of God, but many proofs in Church Father writings, that the Church Fathers, early Church Fathers, later Church Fathers, they all believe in the idea, as most Christians do today, that we are all in states of perpetual sin and in need perpetually of God's grace due to the fall. Now, the difference comes in from the Catholic perspective with this top part here, which is people cannot choose God by themselves due to the fall. Skipping out that middle part there. Now, here is a part in, this is Deuteronomy 30, 19 to 20. This is actually the end of 19, the beginning of 20, I believe, which says here, of course, from the perspective of Moses here. I know this is Exodus, but it illustrates the point. So, choose life such that you and your descendants may live loving God, obeying Him, and then it goes on. The whole of Deuteronomy 30 is about various things that God will do for the Israelites, for His people, and such, and what will happen should they disobey Him, and etc. But this word here, which is where I've started the quote, choose, and this is something that, from the Catholic perspective, contradicts Calvinism a little bit, because Calvinism, the general idea, if we go back to here, people cannot choose God by themselves. Now, the response from that is obviously, say, a Calvinist might then say, well, you know, that it's that you can't save yourself. Are you saying that because people, under the general Catholic view, is that they can, in fact, choose to obey God and choose not to, as we have the doctrine of the belief in free will in Catholicism? And so a Calvinist might say then, well, are you saying that you save yourself? And so I did this little illustration here. This is the general idea of how Catholic salvation works. The idea being, here's a flood, a storm, last patch of dry land, here's a person here, and God sends down a ladder. Now, this person can choose to climb the ladder, but they are not forced to get on the ladder. If they wanted, for whatever reason, I don't know, you'd have to be a crazy person to not take the ladder, but they could, indeed, stay on here, and soon this land wouldn't be very dry and they'd be underwater. Not the best choice. Wouldn't be particularly a choice that I would make, but you could make that choice. God doesn't make you get on the ladder, but He inclines you towards it. Now, that is the contradiction of this bit. People cannot choose God by themselves. Now, if this person gets up to heaven after climbing the ladder, they wouldn't be able to say accurately that they have saved themselves. They didn't bring themselves into heaven. All they did was get on the ladder. God still saved them, and without the grace of God, which is the metaphor here being the ladder, they wouldn't be in heaven. So the idea isn't that you save yourself, but I have an illustration here. This is the Holy Apostolic Ceiling Fan here, predestining this person here, and God is sending down this claw to pick them up. It looks a bit meaner than I wanted it to, actually. I should have probably drawn it looking a little nicer. But anyway, this person doesn't get a choice in the matter. They've been predestined by God to go to heaven, and so the claw picks them up. They have no choice. They go up. This person here, has been predestined not to go to heaven, which is the difference between the single and double predestination. And I realize I'm overlapping with some of the other points of Calvinism, so I'll go over them again in future videos. But this person here isn't being saved by the ceiling fan for whatever reason. Now, I bring up this part here, Matthew 7:21. So, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. I'm sure you've heard this Bible verse before, but only the one who does the will of my Father. Now, this is usually a verse brought up by Catholics like myself to defend the idea of faith being partnered with works, which is a separate Protestant discussion to be had. But the reason I bring this up is because in the Calvinist view, this seems, to me at least, to be a little more sinister, whereas if you look at it from a Catholic point of view, it's basically saying you can't just say, oh, I believe in God, and then go and do a bunch of bad things and still expect to get into heaven. That's the typical reading of this, is that you can't be a performative Christian, you know. You have to actually, you can't just say the things, you have to believe them, and not just believe them, but go and, you know, do the will of the Father, as is said here. But the Calvinist view, the double predestination view, is that, again, with the idea of after the fall, everyone being in sin, is that God has decided that this person has been brought into the world, and he has predestined that this person will not do the will of the Father, and will proclaim, Lord, Lord, and then will not get into heaven. So the idea being that God has brought someone into the world for them effectively to be damned, as he has not given them free will as Catholics understand it, but rather has predestined him in order to go to hell. And that, to me, from the Catholic perspective, seems a little problematic. It seems to limit the grace of God. Anyway, that is all I have for the brief video. I will do some follow-up videos on the other points, and there'll be a lot of overlap between them. So thank you for watching, and God bless, and please do subscribe, and have a blessed day.